Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Welcome, welcome. You know, on tonight's show, we'll be talking with a leading expert on relationships, and we're going to be discussing chemistry, not just in personal relationships, but also in business, because many of us as entrepreneurs know that if you get into a partnership, it can be a lot like a marriage. Some work better than others. We're also going to be answering the lifelong question, if opposites really do attract. And today on the show, we actually have author, psychotherapist, and relationship expert, Ross Rosenberg's on the show. Very smart guy. My wife's excited. She's hoping I'll learn something. We also have an award-winning 8th grade teacher who is the author of a highly anticipated book, What Women Want and How to Give It to Them. Lauren Atterbery's on the show. You want to take notes. And I'll be joined by my dear friend Ian Norris as co-host. Don't go anywhere. If you are in a new relationship or you're in one that's having problems, grab some notes because you will not want to miss a single second. We'll be right back. Stick with us. Thank you. Welcome to the show. Welcome. I'm joined by my dear friend Ian Norris. How are you, buddy?
Good, Dan. Very well. How are you?
It seems like we don't get a chance to hang out enough. I don't know if it's something I did or...
I thought it was the other way around.
Oh, no. I'm always, you class up my my Rolodex, man.
Well,
but how's things been going on, okay?
Good, yes. My in-laws had their 45th anniversary a couple of weeks ago, and they had my father-in-law surprised my mother-in-law with a Disney cruise, and we, as the family of siblings and sons-in-law, we surprised them by turning up on their cruise, which, you know, for many couples, wouldn't necessarily be what you do. But with my in-laws, that's exactly what they wanted us to do.
Well, and I know your father-in-law, and he's, I believe, one of the greatest guys on the planet. He's such a great guy, and so I'm sure the family is his thing. So I'm sure you guys had a blast. Yeah,
absolutely. And you know, you mentioned my father-in-law. He is very much of the entrepreneurial kind. You know, he's always coming up with these ideas. Your expression says it all. And you know, he's always had this vision of having all his family, his sons-in-law, his daughters, in a business that he has wanted to develop. And that actually leads me to my point for this week, which is, let's say, you know, you invite entrepreneurs on and business people, and they share their stories.
Sure.
But let's say you as a parent, me as a parent, if I were one, let's say we wanted our children to be exposed to that approach to life, you know, the opportunity to be their own boss.
Sure.
But the parent has never done that. The parent's been an employee for all their working lives. How do they even begin to do that? How do they begin to expose their child to those methods? And, you know, I got to thinking, if a parent was in that situation, consider some basic, simple businesses or ideas that they could introduce their child to. One that I actually did for myself a number of years ago, I was kind of thrown into it, was I got one of these little these standalone vending candy machines, you know, the gumball style that you put a quarter in. And I thought that would be an ideal opportunity or way for that child to learn something. First of all, it's a low initial investment, which the parents could probably work with them on. Secondly, it would then teach that child to the sales approach, to find a place to put it, talk to the people that own an establishment, get that agreed upon. It teaches them the responsibility of replenishing the stock on a weekly or bi-weekly basis.
Inventory versus profits.
And then they obviously handle the quarters, the money at the end. And I just think that that's just one small example of a possibility for somebody to introduce their children to that.
Well, I agree. And you're talking also subject matter is something that they're interested in. I have a 5-year-old, and there's nothing more that he's interested in than gumballs and candy vending machines, man. So, they're going to be passionate about that.
Yeah, but there are other options out there. You know, just as parents, keep your eyes open and think, you know, what would be a suitable option.
Right. Well, speaking of entrepreneurs, you know, I'm excited about our guest tonight because not only is he an entrepreneur, but he is really a relationships expert, very sought after speaker, and also author. So let's bring him out. Please help me welcome Ross Rosenberg, everybody.
Welcome.
How are you, my friend? Thank you so much for coming on. Ross, before we get into the book, which is just, I know since it's come out, you've been on the radio numerous times a day. What have you done, like 35 interviews in the last?
I think if I count the interviews that I had when the book came out 2 months ago and the ones that are scheduled in the next 2 months, there's a total of 45 interviews.
Yeah, so people are just really responding well to this book. But first of all, tell us a little bit about your background, where you're from.
I'm originally from Mount Prospect, Illinois, and I stayed in Mount Prospect, the Chicago suburbs, most of my life, except when I went to college out east. And I now live in a similar area in Vernon Hills, Illinois. I have a counseling practice in the same area, and I just love the Midwest, and I love Chicago.
Well, and we mentioned you're an entrepreneur. You have your own counseling center as well, and of course you're an author. But you mentioned something very interesting backstage. You said that you really decided to just be an expert. You said you picked your field and said, I'm going to be an expert in this field. And then really you did a very smart thing is you went in to work for a company on really somebody else's dime, took that learning curve, learned what you needed to before going out on your own. So well done, and you've done a really great transition. I know that you run a very successful business. I want to get right into the book because I've been going through this book, and I had to basically pry it out of my wife's hands. She's like evaluating me. But it's called The Human Magnet Syndrome, Why We Love People Who Hurt Us. And I think I could probably talk on this for days, and it's something that people are just, I think every business partner out there needs to read this book. Everybody that's getting into a new relationship or just getting out of an old one, there's so much stuff. But let's talk a little bit about codependency. What is a codependent?
A codependent is one of these loosely defined terms that means a lot to a lot of people. So in my book, I decided to narrow down the term. Essentially, it means it's a personality type in which you're more focused on other people's needs, desires, and ambitions or goals, and less focused on yourself. Codependents get into a relationship with others, and they become invisible. They become the caretakers. They become everyone's everything, and they lose themselves for other people.
Right. So if it's the kids, it's like the kids are always first, the spouse is always first, this always first. And could we say sometimes to the point of neglecting themselves?
Oh, absolutely. By definition, codependency is a psychological problem, and a codependent does not care sufficiently for themselves. They do not seek to get their own needs met, and are more focused on other people's needs at the detriment to their own psychological health.
And would you say that maybe one of the reasons why would be maybe, I would suspect maybe people with this maybe have a lower self-image of themselves, maybe they don't feel like they're worthy of that attention?
Yes, actually codependents come from a background in which early on they learned to have lower self-esteem, lower self-worth, and because they don't value themselves, they tend to put more value and attention with other people and less on themselves.
And how about one thing that really struck me in here, and I know a lot of these, I think, or have over the years, but an emotional manipulator. If somebody's an emotional manipulator in a relationship, talk a little about that.
Yeah, I use the term emotional manipulator to describe individuals who have severe narcissism. And in the book, emotional manipulator stands for 3 separate diagnoses and someone who's an addict. So essentially, an emotional manipulator is someone who's intensely narcissistic, who's self-centered, arrogant, vain, and is consumed with their own needs at the detriment to other people's needs.
Yikes. My wife's watching right now thinking I'm a narcissist, but I'm not, I promise. And these two, what draws these two personality types together? Because I've actually been around many couples where it's a very unhealthy relationship, but you cannot pry them apart with a crowbar. But there's a real attraction to these two. What are some of the factors?
Well, the title of the book, The Human Magnet Syndrome, is based upon the idea that magnets are comprised of a piece of metal that has opposite sides, and the opposite sides attract each other. Well, if we look at these the personality differences, we have codependents who are all about other people, who are sacrificial, they're caretakers. And then the opposite of that is someone who's all about themselves. They're self-centered, they're controllers, they need to be taken care of. And these two opposite personality types fit perfectly in a very dysfunctional way, much like two magnets, two opposite sides of a magnet fit together.
Mm-hmm. And so let's say that two are dysfunctional. Is that better than, say, one being dysfunctional? I mean, do you have to be as screwed up as the other person or not for it to work, in essence?
Well, in my book, I use the analogy of dance. a dance to describe these two opposite dysfunctional personality types. So if you think of a dance couple, you need someone who's going to lead and be in control.
Yeah,
and for that dance to work out, you need someone who's passive and naturally takes the lead. And those two opposite personality types come together in this perfect dance, and I call a dysfunctional dance. So it's as if in these romantic relationships, these opposite personality types are drawn to each other because their weaknesses make up for the other person's weaknesses in a complementary way. Like,
that's a great example, a dance. And so really, if you have two people that want to follow or two people that want to lead, it's not going to work as well as these two coming together.
No, it doesn't work. I mean, if you have two narcissists in a relationship, they both want to talk all the time. They need someone who's going to listen and be amazed at how smart they are.
That's right. That's right. My wife is, okay, enough said. I don't want to get in trouble.
That's really fascinating, actually, because I would have, if I had to guess, I would have said that the person that was catering to the other individual's needs was not the one that had an issue.
Right.
But obviously, there is something there too.
Well, there's nothing wrong with being caring and loving and sacrificial, but it's when you sacrifice your own needs, your own desires, your own dreams for someone else, then that's what we call dysfunctional or unhealthy.
Right. And real quick, let's talk a little bit about the title, because it's so catchy, the human magnet syndrome, why we love people who hurt us. How'd you come up with the title, I have to ask?
Well, a long time ago, I was with a friend, and I was complaining about all of the relationship problems I've had. And, you know, I'd meet someone, and I think they were great. I'd get into a relationship. I even married someone, and I thought it was perfect, and it soon fell apart. And this friend just got tired of the complaints. He says, you know, Ross, the problem is you have a broken picker. And he says, you always pick the wrong person. And I started to think about it. It's so easy to, like, diagnose someone else, to come up with a reason why they hurt me or they weren't good enough. But I started to think in respect to myself, what is it about me that consistently finds someone attractive who ends up being harmful? And then I eventually came to the conclusion that there are opposite personality types that are pulled together like magnets. So there was a title, The Human Magnet Syndrome, Why We Love People That Hurt Us.
Well, and we're going to take a short break, but when we come back, I want to talk about, you know, sometimes they do recognize, okay, we're in a pretty volatile relationship, things are tough, but they just don't leave. Both of them are they're inseparable. Yes. So I want to talk a little bit about that. Stick with us more with Ross Rosenberg in a minute. Don't go anywhere. Thank you. Thank you. We're here talking with Ross Rosenberg, and we've been discussing codependency and also emotional. I mean, I think that most people, maybe it's me, but people are a mess. and since I've been going through your book, I know probably at least 30 people that I think I have to buy it and put it in their hands immediately. And what I like about it is there's some very complex things that you've really broken down into layman's terms that I feel like anybody could read this and be able to take the nuts and bolts out of it and apply it. So it's very absorbable to everybody. But if somebody, we were discussing before the break, if somebody is in a codependent relationship or they're in a volatile relationship, they realize it, why don't they get out?
Well,
why is it so tough?
Essentially, the codependent and the emotional manipulator are adults who have a stunted psychological health. They both were raised in environments where they didn't learn how to love themselves and how to respect themselves. And they're both essentially lonely individuals who need the other person to feel good about themselves. The codependent needs to take care of someone to feel fulfilled, and the narcissist or the emotional manipulator needs someone who will take care of him to feel good about themselves.
Yeah, sure.
And together, it's like two half individuals make one person in a relationship. And in any relationship, you need two individuals. And that is why these two match up perfectly, because their insecurities and their opposite personality types match up and work for each other.
And would you say if somebody's an emotional manipulator or a codependent, could a lot of times these come from maybe an event early in life that, like almost trauma, we could say, where maybe when they were 13 years old, this thing happened, and then maybe physically and all these other ways in life they've kind of moved on, but emotionally they're still 13 years old.
Well, actually, in my book, I talk about the origins of codependency and the emotional manipulator disorders. It comes from the very first 4 to 5 years of a child's life, and it depends. It depends on how they were raised. Emotional manipulators and codependents have an emotional manipulator parent, and they were hurt very badly emotionally, and those scars set up what I call a relationship template that plays out later as they get older.
Right. And let's talk a little bit about business. You know, being an entrepreneur-based show, I find this topic so fascinating because I would think that this would still apply to partnerships in business.
It actually applies to all relationships. We are all magnetically, if not reflexively, attracted to someone who makes us feel good about ourselves. And if we are codependent and we want to be in a business, we are going to gravitate or be attracted to someone who's bold and charismatic, who will take the lead, and that partnership is the same human magnet syndrome as romantic relationships.
Right. Well, and so if we're in this relationship, we know that part of it, works. Like you said, both sides have what the other needs, and it's kind of a complete thing. But can these personality types change, or can they, although they're kind of incomplete on both sides, can they improve, or are they just doomed to, it is what it is? Well,
the codependent is more capable of psychological change because they endured much less trauma as a child. We find that the emotional manipulators, their extreme forms of narcissism are resistant to psychotherapy because you can't change something you're not aware of.
Right.
And the narcissists don't think they have a problem. They tend to blame everyone else for the problem, and they're not good candidates for psychotherapy.
Well, and again, the book is The Human Magnet Syndrome, Why We Love People Who Hurt Us. I recommend it to so many people. And where can they get more information about the book or buy the book?
You can get it on my website, humanmagnetsyndrome.com, or you can find out more information about me at rossrosenbergtherapy.com.
Well, thank you so much, Ross, for coming. You've been a very amazing guest. Ross Rosenberg, everybody. And stick around while I introduce our next guest. Our next guest is actually an award-winning 8th grade teacher. She's really influencing the lives of hundreds of students in a positive way, and she's the author of the highly anticipated book, What Women Want and How to Give It to Them. And I want you to stay out here, and I don't want you to cross-examine her, but I want to see what your thoughts are on this book as well. Please help me welcome Lauren Atterbery, everybody. Pleasure. Thank you for coming.
Thanks for having me.
You're so upbeat.
That's what everybody.
We were talking earlier, and you're so friendly. Yeah, it's the Prozac.
Kidding.
Well,
Mom, I'm not on Prozac.
I mentioned you're an award-winning teacher. Tell us a little bit about the awards that you received.
I'd love to toot my own horn. Thanks for asking. Maybe
We're going to really get along. She's a narcissist. Go ahead.
So I was voted last year the State Farm Good Neighbor by all the students in the school. Yeah. And this year I became the Teacher of the Year for my school, and then the Teacher of the Year for my parish, which is like y'all's counties.
Yeah.
So it's kind of where I am in my teaching career.
Well, let me ask you a question, because we got the guy right here. But you spend the majority of your time with teenagers. So how is that? I mean, do you go home and you need therapy, and afterwards we could probably set some counseling up?
Can I get a discount?
But I mean, really, the majority of you spend with these teenagers, that's got to be challenging.
You know, a lot of people ask me if insanity runs in my family.
Yeah.
No, it is challenging, but that's any job, right? It's got to be a new challenge every day to keep you interested, and that's what I love. I'm a problem solver. I love to go in and figure it out, and to make it fun. If you can make it fun, that's like 95% of the battle.
Right. That's what so many entrepreneurs forget to do, is like have fun in business, right? And I want to talk a little bit real quick about your style in the classroom, because I think there's so many paradigms of like, this is the teacher-student relationship, or here's the way you're supposed to teach, and it's this, sometimes I think shackles and handcuffs of, the rules you have to go by. But from what I hear, you do a lot of pretty unorthodox things. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, we all had that teacher where you go in and they're like, all right, open to page 72 and do the next 117 problems.
Yeah.
I'll be at my desk. Don't ask me any questions. No, but that's not who I am. I want to go in and I want to make it different. I want the kids to come in and never know what to expect. And if I do that, they're always on the edge of their seat and they're going to remember the things that I'm teaching them.
Yeah.
You know, so, and it's honestly, it's not even about what you teach, it's about how you treat them. That's what they'll remember. But just a few things that I try to do in my room every year, I let my kids set a challenge for me. I can't ask them to challenge themselves if they don't see me challenge myself.
So that's a great point. They have to, hey, if you're asking them to challenge themselves, you have to be willing to do it
Absolutely.
as well.
I also teach from the tabletops.
Let's talk about the book. You know, obviously you're a female and we're started off that way, I think. But, you know, you wrote a book basically for guys, what women want and how to give it to them. It's kind of like, is it a book like, guys, here's how to get a clue? Or,
yes, it is.
Okay. Well, I appreciate that.
No problem. That's kind of what it was. You know, I've been on so many bad dates, my gosh, that sometimes I'm like, man, I should write a book about this.
Yeah.
You know, and all my guy friends would ask me for advice, and I'm an observer of human behavior, much like yourself, and I finally decided, you know what, I really am just going to write a book. And when someone asks me for advice, I'm like, please refer to chapter 2.
And call me if you agree or disagree.
Don't call me, just read the book.
Right.
So.
Well, and from what I understand, the book was actually spawned on by your students saying, we want you to write a book, and they gave you a time constraint.
Yes, and it wasn't that my first book was, my students, I asked them to challenge me, and they said, my gosh, why don't you write a book? You're asking us to write. And I said, okay, I will. So they gave me, till the end of school, it was about 2 to 3 months, and they would ask me, they'd be like, hey, did you write yesterday? And I'm like, hey, did you do your vocabulary? Stop asking. But I did, and that's kind of what got me to finish the book, and then this one came about. And
real quick, give me one dating experience that you can share.
She and I could co-author a book there.
How dumb are guys? Go ahead, tell it, enlighten us.
Well, I think women and men are equally on equal footing in that arena. However, one of the really bad dates I had, I hate to admit this, but so a guy emailed me that I had known previously, and I thought, I was like, oh my God, he's so hot. Yes, I can't believe he just emailed me. I, you know, had that girl moment. I think I did a dance, you know, at my computer, and he said, I would love to take you out. Do you want to go see The Passion of the Christ? That's how long ago it was. And I was like, yeah, I've really been wanting to see this, and you're really hot. Yes, I would love to go.
And it's a long movie, so
it's a long movie. A lot of time.
It's dark.
Yeah, okay. The Passion of the Christ. No, but so anyway, he shows up at my door, and it's not the same guy. And he said it was a guy that was in. They were both in the same band, and he said, I thought that you wouldn't go out with me if you knew who I was. And so my first thought is, oh my God, I don't want to go on this date. But then I felt horrible because I was like, what? He thinks I'm some awful person. He couldn't tell me who he was. So I'm like, okay. And I really wanted to see the movie. It'd been sold out for like 3 months. So, you know, I'm like, all right, I'll get in your station wagon.
Worst case scenario, free movie ticket.
Yeah. Oh, but no. Okay, so we get there and they're sold out for the 7 o'clock feature. And then he's like, oh no, I forgot my wallet. And I was like, oh my God.
And
I was
manipulator.
Okay, and I was like, man, I really want to see this movie. I hope you're watching. No, I was like, I really want to see this movie. So I was like, all right. So I bought the movie tickets, and we have to go kill some time, right? So we go to my favorite coffee shop, and I'm talking to a friend at the coffee shop, and he comes over with a cup of coffee, and I'm like, where did you get that with your no money? And
did you call him on the carpet?
I did.
I
did. He goes, I found $1 in my pocket, and I was like, you should have given me that coffee. But so then we get to the movies, to the actual movie, and he's making knock-knock jokes. People threw popcorn at us. I think I had a Twizzler in my hair when we were leaving.
Unreal.
And he takes me home, and he's like, so when can we see each other again? And I'm like, never. Read my book.
I have to tell you that I know. I know that Ross's brain is going crazy right now.
Well,
what do you think about this?
You're the pro, man. You tell me.
You know, it actually validates my book. You are not a codependent, and he's an emotional manipulator, and there's no magnetic attraction. There's no perfect fit. You're annoyed at him, but if you're a codependent, you would
What on the second date?
You would pull out your purse and pay for dinner and maybe give him a camera to take another picture. No, but because there wasn't that magnetic attraction, he annoyed you, and I bet that was the last date.
It was.
That was the end of that.
Well,
one.
listen, I'm going to give this to you, and before next time, I promise you will enjoy that. And the best of luck. And tell us, when is the book due out?
It's going to be out this fall, so please look for it
And where
buy
can we
it.
buy it now? I dig your style. And where can we get more information about the book and follow the release date?
Well, if you want to be a part of my mailing list or my newsletter, you can email me at datingsolutions@gmail.com. I can also hook you up with my website through that. So.
Oh, I'm going to be on it because you're so fun.
Thank you.
Lauren Atterbery, everybody. I want to give a special thanks to Ross Rosenberg as well as Ian Norris for co-hosting. That's our show. We're out of time. Don't forget to get involved in your local community and be forgiving of others. Good night, everybody. Hi, I'm Dan Vega, and thank you for watching our channel. I want to take a second to tell you about a resource that's helping thousands of people across the country, Blue University. Blue University is the premier online business school for entrepreneurs and business leaders. You know, if you find yourself in a day-to-day grind where you've lost your joy or you're just tired of struggling, then check out blue.university. That's BLU.university. I can promise that you receive nothing short of a multi-million-dollar education. And if you want a completely different life in 3 to 6 months and a way to create wealth in 5 years or less, then again, check it out. That's BLU.university. Find out why blue is the new color of success. Also, make sure to subscribe to this channel or to give us a good rating, but that's only if you see value. And when you do receive value, make sure to share it with someone else. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next time.